I'm a great fan of the Peanuts cartoons, and there's one where Charlie Brown, or it may be Linus, but he's firing a toy bow and arrow, and he's firing at a fence. You know, the sort of arrows with suckers on, and he fires them, and boom, they stick to the fence, and then he goes and paints circles around them so that his arrow ends up in the middle of the target. And Lucy comes along and says, "What do you think you're doing?" And he just says, "This way I can guarantee success." I think success for many of us is like that. If we're not successful in the way one person looks at it, we redefine it so that somehow we fit and we can hit the target. But one of the problems we have today is the target that's been drawn for us seems to have been drawn from the world, that success is bigger, better, stronger. Who has the most people attending their church? Who has the most number of churches? Who's the best speaker? Who looks the best? Who sounds the best? So on and so on. So we talk about success in just the way the world does. Now I remember thinking that we have an illustration in the Old Testament and that would actually sort of cut right across all of this sort of thing. Because there was a church, if you want to call it that, of millions of people, that had a leader that talked with God face to face, that saw miracles every day. Now most of us would say, wow, what a fantastic church, especially those of you of charismatic persuasion. That sounds like a fantastic church. Anointed leader, huge numbers of people, miracles every day. Yeah, of course, if you've followed this at all, you'll realize I'm talking about Moses and his people. Well, when God looks at them, instead of being pleased with their success, as it were, he's horrified by what he sees in their hearts. And yet later on in the scriptures, we can see a man named Jeremiah who's even told that as he speaks, that people are going to reject him, they're not going to listen. And yet he's considered one of the greats of the faith. So quite clearly, God's view of success is different from ours. What is true success? Well, surely it's actually being able to be, like David was, a man after or a woman after God's own heart. We say it, but I'll leave it up to you to decide in your own heart whether this is true or not. That all we need to get when we get to heaven is, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Well, if that's what we're looking for then, surely that's what we should be looking for now. And the trouble is, sometimes the call of God calls us to be the aroma of death to some, hopefully the aroma of life to others. But success, as the world defines it, is not something we should be going after. I have a friend who was telling me that he leads a church of several hundred people in the Midlands of the UK, which is a big church in our country, and he would deem to be successful. Yet down the road he has a friend who planted a church amongst Muslims, and it has grown to 32. Who's the more successful? Well, in the end, even asking the question may mean we've missed the point. But even so, it does change our perspective. Because we won't know who's the most successful until we receive, or not, as the case may be, our rewards when we stand before God himself. What is success? Success is being a good child of the Father, being a passionate first lover of the Son, and keeping in step with the Holy Spirit. And whatever results from that is godly success. And just for a little thought as you leave this clip, when people boast about numbers, especially as you've heard another one, I think of God's context of church as being family. Someone comes and says to me, they have 100 children. I don't assume that they're successful, I assume that they're immoral. Successful parenting is multiplying your children. As a matter of fact, as a friend of mine once said, you don't really know if you're a good parent until you see your grandchildren. So let's put role models behind us and start looking at how to be children of the Father, lovers of the Son, and in step with the Holy Spirit, whatever and wherever that takes you. That is true success.